Hello, grade nines. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a lovely break and then a lovely, almost full snow week off. I hope all of you are done all of your homework you needed to get done now since you had an extra 4 days of extra vacation time. And maybe a snowball fight or two, or built a snowman. Anyways, um, I'm going to go over a couple of announcements and just new kind of scheduling things just because of missing this week. And then I'm going to go through a class. So the class that we were going to have this week, that Friday's classes will have tomorrow, I'm making this video for it so that all of you can have this class, just because I know all of you were missing it and really wanted it. So you all have it. We won't have a quiz, I don't think, on it. I haven't quite decided that one yet, but if it is, it would have to be on like Sunday. I don't think so. Anyways, so all this material will be fair game for your exam, and that is something that we will then can review next week. Hopefully we don't have another 4 snow days, because that would get interesting. Anyways, so announcements. First, if you are one of these special few people who have not done their presentations, you have to come see me tomorrow. Have to. I have to see you. If not, there's not much I can do. Next, if you've missed the unit test, there's like 3 of you, something like that. Please come and see me at the start of lunch. I know lunch is only 25 minutes, but I will sacrifice some of my lunch to talk to you 3, maybe 4 of you who missed the unit test, since that's important. Next week. Next week is review week. So technically you're not supposed to get any new work. I can't promise other classes that's going to happen since the scheduling nightmare of snow days, but that will be true for chemistry. So I don't think you'll have a quiz on what I'll go over in this video tonight, / anytime you watch it. Beauty of videos. And what that means is I'm definitely not giving a bonus assignment because I can't, and I can't give anything else because I can't. So review week, sending you this class now, and then if you have questions about anything in this video, probably shouldn't, since it would be fairly straightforward, you can ask those next week, or Friday's classes tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, and your presentation rubrics. Once I start handing those back, and once I've handed them all back, then I will upload or make visible all of those grades. Again, I don't like making the grades visible if you don't have the rubrics and you don't know what happened. So I'd rather give you the rubrics first than that. So without further ado, just because this will be a slightly long video, I'm just going to jump ahead to the class. Again, if you have any questions, as you know, please come and see me. And then probably sometime next week, or maybe during the review time, I will have a review session. But I have to go look when places, like different rooms, are open to plan all of that, and that I don't have access to right now. So, week 14. There we go. All right. Welcome to your online class / YouTube's class / preview for tomorrow, if you have classes tomorrow, and I continue. Here's your comic. As you stare at that comic and maybe laugh or not, the new band, I will play it and another one next week. They just came out with a CD. I think they just came out. No idea how to pronounce it, but they're really cool, and I've been listening to the 4 songs that they have released from their CD thus far. Pretty good, interesting band. Fun fact. Moving on. So, as most of you know, over the break, Mr. Houston went to... Oh, never mind. Not showing a photo. Tip of the week. your tip of the week is studying. I will go over this as well as in your review week because it's that important. I would start doing that now. I know it seems like a while in advance, but the more you go over now, the easier it is later, and the more prepared you are, the better that usually goes. So I highly recommend you start studying now or so, or at least definitely get everything organized too. Maybe like today or tomorrow or the next day, so that next week you have the questions you want to ask in the review classes. You know what to ask for help on from your teachers, and then when you're actually starting to like get into the crunch time before exams, you're already on top of it. You've probably gone over everything at least once, and that just makes life so much better. And then you won't have like huge pits under your eyes and look like zombies by the end of the exam period. Most of you probably will anyways, but again, just trying to help you. There's your tip. Now, as I was saying, most of you know that I went somewhere over the break. This is a place I took a boat to. That's not the boat I took. I wish it looks like a pirate ship. Anyways, this is a little island near the island I was at. And the cool thing about this is it does this. Yeah. I thought so cool, too. And yes, the water was that turquoise. Lovely spot. Anyways, moving on in life. Today we're going to be talking about aluminum, or if you're British / weird, you can say aluminium. And it sounds so much cool, so I will say both. They're the same thing, same element. One just has an extra I, aluminum or aluminium. Anyways, moving on. Again, I like aluminium. So, it's group 13, so IIX. In periodic table, it's a V. Anyways, it is the first column way at the end after the transition metals. So all those weird metals that don't really behave like they should. So it's in period 3. So it's not the hydrogen helium row. It's not the lithium beryllium row. It's the next row. It's one below boron. Anyways, its melting point is around 660. Its density is 2.7 grams per centimeters cubed. It's a silvery white lustrous metal. It's relatively soft and malleable. It's very lightweight and non-toxic. That non-toxic part is very important as well as the other things. But for instance, one of the uses that I will go over later is aluminum cans. So this is aluminum. This is what it looks like. All of you know it. It's very, very lightweight, as you know, when these are empty, which this one is. It's very lightweight compared to like iron or steel or even copper is still heavier than this. Anyways, and we'll talk about the reasons why those are important in a second. So right now. So, as I just said, it's in cans, aluminum foil or aluminium foil, window frames, as well as airplane parts. So aluminum is very, very lightweight, and therefore it's very, very good for things that you want to keep the weight down, like an airplane. You don't want really, really heavy airplanes. Moving on. The other really good thing about aluminum is the outside of it oxidizes, or it turns into aluminum oxide. So it reacts with oxygen or water in the air or in water. And what happens is it makes a very thin layer of aluminum oxide, and then that thin layer protects it from further corrosion, which is very important. So like this can, it won't keep rusting, even though Coca-Cola, for instance, is very, very acidic, and it would corrode metal. However, the thin layer of oxide, technically inside and outside this can, protects the can so that doesn't happen. I also talked about it being non-toxic. So this, maybe the contents might kill me, but the aluminum, if it gets leached into the beverage or soup or whatever is inside the can, won't kill me or you or anyone. so that's good. And the other thing is you can mix aluminum with other things, which I'll talk about in a second. So the other good thing about aluminum is you can machine it. So what that means is you can put it into a machine and you can shape it, you can turn it into other shapes. So if you put it into a mold, or however they make cans, that I don't actually know, it's very easy to make it into different shapes and sizes and all of that, and cut it, etc., etc. Therefore, if you're making a plane, it's very easy to have a factory that is pounding out pieces or machining pieces of aluminum, because it's very easy to work with. And as I was alluding to earlier, it's usually seen as an alloy. And an alloy is when you mix more than one metal together so that it has properties of both. So if you mix aluminum with, let's say, copper, it doesn't behave like copper anymore, and it doesn't behave just like aluminum anymore. It's a mix between the two. So what you can do when you mix it with magnesium or manganese or silicon is it makes aluminum much, much, much stronger. And it's still lightweight, but it holds together much more, and it still has some of the characteristics of aluminum. So for instance, with aluminum cans, just due to the shape of the can, you can actually stand on two cans, it's like one under each foot, and if you gently put your body weight on it, it will hold you just due to the shape. But aluminum is actually very malleable, so I can crush this with my bare hands. That didn't take that much force. So it is strong, but it's not that strong. Therefore, that's why they add another metal into the aluminum to make it stronger, because if your plane's wing did that, that wouldn't be so good. And moving on. It's also in reflective things, shiny things, so some packaging, telescope mirrors. It's also one of the two elements that is commonly used in like mirrors, like what you have in your bathroom. Sometimes it's silver, sometimes it's aluminum, depends on the mirror. Moving on. So, this is where it gets fun. Aluminium is amphoteric, which means that it is slightly fancy, and there's some other metals that are, but what does amphoteric mean? Again, it's amphoteric. It's not, it looks fancy, but it's not. It means that it can act as both an acid and a base. Now, we haven't discussed acids and bases a lot. We have slightly, some sections have asked about it. So, well, we can name them, but we haven't actually talked about really what they do. So, for our sake, right now, because I haven't taught you the specifics of acids and bases other than naming them, what you need to know is it will react with both an acid and a base. So some metals don't. So for instance, some metals will not react with a base, or some metals will only react with an acid, but there's a select few metals that can react with both, or select few metals that you would use normally. Anyways, some other metals on that list are copper, zinc, tin, lead, and beryllium. So what this means is if you have aluminum, it can react with a base. So let's say sodium hydroxide, that was the base we used in our lab, or you can mix it with hydrochloric acid and it will also react with that, which is something that not all metals will do. So it makes it a little bit special in that regard. Anyways, that's all I'm going to cover today in this video. However, there's a little bit more to talk about outside of aluminum. So way back, probably the second week of classes, so a long time ago, you may not remember, we talked about families. Not like you and your brother and sister, but I'll make connections with that later. In the periodic table, everything that's in a column are known as families. This is because all of those elements in that column have sometimes some similar characteristics or similar properties, or they definitely have similar interactions with other elements, usually. So, everything I just said. Ta-da. Now, this is important because we've talked about calcium, we've talked about sulfur, we've talked about multiple different compounds in and related to those. However, all of the other elements in those families will have similar characteristics to those elements above and below. So, for instance, sulfur has some similar properties to oxygen, and then everything below it, since oxygen is above sulfur. Aluminium or aluminum has some similar characteristics to boron, and also some similar characteristics to everything below it. Then calcium has some similar characteristics to like magnesium. This is because they both will make +2 cations, or positively charged ions. Therefore, when they react, they both want 2 electrons, which means that their other compounds that they make will have similar properties in some ways. So just like if you look at your brother or sister or your parents, you might have some characteristics that are the same with them and some that are different, but you can sometimes tell very easily, like, oh, you are similar to your parents, or you are similar to your siblings. You might not be exactly the same, which none of these elements are, but you have some common characteristics. So that's important to know when we move on, because we're not going to study each and every element and all of their compounds, but just know that the ones we studied will be similar to other ones in their families. Fun fact. Okay, moving on. So here's a periodic table. As you can see, I talked about sulfur, and then oxygen, and then aluminium, and boron, and then calcium and magnesium. So for instance, helium in the top right, it will be similar to neon and argon and krypton and xenon and radon in some ways, but not always. So for instance, radon is radioactive. Not the rest of them are. Whereas lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium, all of those ones are slightly similar in their properties because they all will lose 1 electron, and they're all fairly reactive because of it. And then there's other things that are similar, same with their malleability and things like that. So, just other ways that this periodic table is very, very, very ingenious and helpful to us by understanding trends and how things behave. Okay, nope, that's it. So, that's all I'm going to go over for aluminum, just because I don't want to go too far into that, since most of you will be learning this from this. If you have questions, next week we'll be doing a review week. Now, as I alluded to before, I talked about studying and how it's really important to potentially start that now, so that in your review classes next week, you will know what you know and what you don't know, so you can ask your teachers for help in that review week. That's the point of the review week. So for me, I might go over a couple things. I'll definitely go over aluminum again, just to make sure that that is a little more clear. However, I'm not going to try to reteach the whole semester in roughly 40 minutes or 80 minutes. 2 things of 40 minutes. It's something where if you have questions, that is your time to ask. I'm assuming most of you hopefully will know everything we've talked about. If you don't, I can't read your minds. So it's up to you guys to know what you know and know what you don't know before the exam. And if it's during that review week, you can ask those questions. So I highly, 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 highly recommend you go through your notes, go through your work, figure out what you know, figure out what you don't know, so that you can ask questions and get help on the stuff you don't know. So, very important. Definitely do that, because next week I'll definitely, as you know, just put up a thing. Do you have any questions? I'll go over some things that I know that I should go over just to make sure, but generally speaking, I'm putting that responsibility more on you guys because I can rant about stuff you guys already know well, and then it's a complete waste of time. So that's it. So again, I hope all of you had a lovely break for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday sections. I don't want to say I'm sorry you had snow days, but I'm sorry I couldn't teach you this in person. Friday, people, I will see you tomorrow for condensed classes. So I'll see you at like 9, I think. And then everyone else, you will have to go through that video, take notes, make sure you understand the stuff, and then if you don't, you can ask questions in the review session. I'm going to end it here since that was probably a really long time. And again, if you have questions, please come and see me. And just as a friendly reminder to everyone, if you didn't do your presentations, you have to see me tomorrow. If you've missed the unit test, you also have to see me tomorrow. Please come during lunch. And then remember that next week is review week, so I'm not going to give you any work. I can't give you any work. Technically, no one else can, but that is all. So I wish you guys have a lovely first and last day of the week. And Happy New Year. Justina Novo Godina. And that's all. All right. Take it easy, and I'll see some of you tomorrow.